Welcome to week 3 of Principles of Management. This week, your discussion is due for the manager interview paper. So I want to talk a little bit about that. So in this course, you have 3 papers, and this is the first of the papers. So if you go to the Content tab and go to the Papers folder, it's the manager interview and paper. So for this assignment, you're going to be interviewing a manager. And I want you to pick someone who's not a family member, not a friend. Choose a manager of a small local business or a large organization, profit or nonprofit. But it's better if you stretch yourself a little bit, meet someone new, reach out to an organization you might be interested in working for someday, so that you meet someone new, learn something new about their job. And since this is a management class, this is always about learning about management styles. So for the paper, you're going to look at the requirements. So download this document, and then this document will show you what's required for the paper. So first, you're going to determine this week who you're going to interview, and this is going to be a business owner, a manager at a large firm, a local small business, or a nonprofit organization. So you're going to post this information that's under number 2 in the discussion this week. So the name, the title, and the contact information, either email or phone number of the person, where they work, so let me know their business or organization and the reason why you selected to interview this individual. And then I'll get back to you and let you know whether or not it's approved. So for your paper, first you're going to conduct an interview, and it needs to be face-to-face. Make an appointment with the person. So this week when you're trying to decide who you want to interview, make sure you reach out to them and you've confirmed a date for when you can sit down and interview this person. So face-to-face interview. And then these are the things that I want you to talk to them about. So these are the items that you'll formulate your questions for when you sit down and interview this person. So you want to describe their management tasks. So this is where you want to talk to the person about what do they do on a daily basis, what types of things do they do in their job as a manager. You want to talk about or ask them why or how their job differs from others in the organization. So as a manager, how does their job differ from other individuals in the organization? You want to talk to them about the environmental forces that influence their business. And when we mean environmental forces, we don't mean the weather. So environmental forces are not the weather. Those are things external to a business or an organization that you have no control over, but it still impacts the business and you have to somehow address it. So examples of environmental forces might be laws or regulations. It might be things like gas prices. It could be competition. It could be demographics. The demographics of the area might be changing, and how does that influence the business? I mentioned gas prices. Gas prices can be a real big influence on a business. If you do pizza delivery, that can increase the price of delivery for your business. If you're a huge organization like UPS, gas prices can affect their bottom line. So that's an external environmental force that a manager and organization has to address. You want to talk about the company's organizational chart. So I would ask them ahead of time, do you have an organizational chart and can I see it? And I would also recommend that you email your questions to the person ahead of time. So make sure you do that so that they can be prepared. So some organizations or businesses aren't going to have an organizational chart, and that's fine. I just want you to then talk to them about how they're structured, who reports to whom, how many people do they supervise, how many levels are there in the company or the business, and kind of talk then about the pros and cons of that. How many people does something have to go through before it's approved? Is there just one boss who's in charge? So kind of evaluate the organization, but if they have one, their organizational chart, and then identify the good points and the bad points of that. in your paper. You want to ask them about the challenges in delegating authority. You know, what are the challenges when it comes to that, and then how they correct those challenging situations. You also want to ask them about their best practices when disciplining employees, and then you'll write about that. You want to talk about their communication practices and then communication barriers. And then finally, you want to include a reflection describing, your experience with the interview and then your overall opinion of the company and the manager and whether or not you'd like to work for the organization and why or why not. Here are the requirements for the paper. So 1,000 to 1,200 words plus your cover page, typed, Times New Roman. Make sure it's well organized. Double check all your spelling and your grammar. Have someone proofread it. Make sure you address all of these topics. I don't want you to just say, oh, the company didn't have an organizational chart. Well, that's fine if they don't, but I want you to talk to them about why don't they? And then I want you to talk about at least how they're organized, who reports to whom. And then I also want you to include an introduction, a conclusion, and a reflection. I'm going to go back here. I want to let you know the rubrics in here, so you can also download the rubric. And this is how the paper will be scored. So it's worth 100 points. And then it shows you format is worth 10 points, organization is worth 10 points, and then the content, again, is worth the majority of the grade. Make sure you thoroughly address all those items, and then also include your reflection. And then finally, I also put a template in here for you. So please, please, please use this. This is a Word document. So if you go in here and you download this, you can open the Word document. You can go to File and do a Save As. You can see I'm the author, but when you do a Save As, you can save it under your name and then use this for typing your paper. The headers are already set up, the page numbers. You type in your first and last name, type in my name, so Mrs. Watkins, and then put the month, day, and the year. And I already have it set up for you. Here's your introductory paragraph. You just highlight this and type over it. So include your information. This is where you introduce your topic, the purpose of the paper. This is where you'll provide the name of the manager, their title, the name of the business or organization where he or she works. So this is your introduction. And then I've already put the headers in here for you, so you don't have to change any of that. If you address everything that's in here, you will have covered all the topics. So this is where you describe the specific tasks of their job. Then you'll talk about how their job differs from others in the organization. I've put in Latin type in here just as a filler. You'll talk about the environmental forces. So again, this is where you talk to them about what are the environmental forces that influence their business. And some of those examples, like I mentioned, competition, demographics, laws and regulations, economic factors, culture, technology. So this is where you talk about those environmental forces. This is where you talk about the organization or their organizational chart. How they delegate authority and some of the challenges that go with delegating authority, discipline, communication, and then this is where you'll include your reflection. And then finally, conclusion. So one paragraph, summarize your paper. Most conclusions start with in conclusion. So that's just some tips. I really do want you to use this template, so please do. And one thing is, after you've completed your interview with your manager, follow up with a thank you email or a thank you letter or a thank you note. It's always a good business practice to do that. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck with your manager interview.